So, I wanted to post a video a little earlier than this as a follow-up to my last video about the taijutsu rotation, but I had gotten caught up in the new Monster Hunter that came out this week, so I delayed this for quite some time. Because we upgrade so much week to week from Brel, I feel like I keep changing things about my scrapper, whether it's the build or the rotation. And this week, I finally got to play with level 3 Rend. It really completely changes the way that we play Scrapper now. Disclaimer for those who are under 1680 or even 1690, you probably haven't done enough Brelshaza to get level 3 Rend, so your rotation doesn't really need to change until Rend is a major part of your damage distribution. At level 3, Rend becomes by far the most damaging ability in your kit, and for me it averages about 25 to 30% of my damage. Since getting level 3 Rend, I started doing some trick scene tests to see which combinations of stats and skills would best allow for maximum usage of Rend. In my last video, I talked about the rotation of taijutsu becoming a lot less flexible and having a much more strict rotation, but now I'm throwing that out the window and saying you pretty much use everything to send Rend. I actually saw a recent Reddit post, maybe about a week ago, about how taijutsu should be played now, like what's the best build. Yeah, people seem to agree that the consensus for taijutsu is Rend is priority. But a lot of people go about it quite differently. So I have a notepad listing about an hour and a half of trick scene tests with all the varying tripods, skills, stats, engravings in about a 2-minute damage test. So pretty much all of these tests are done with Blunt Thorn. It is by far the best 4th row node. And I did some with 50-50 stat, and then some with a little bit higher crit. Now, I will say, if you wanted to change any engravings, it'd be pretty difficult. I know there are people out there who probably have mass increase relic books. While at the moment it would probably be better, I think it's not worth if you don't have full relic mass increase books. It makes the rotation very sluggish, slow. It doesn't feel good to play. The damage isn't necessarily the worst, but it's not the best either. Here I have Blunt Thorn 2020. This is pretty much the standard that most people will probably be running. You would use crit pet, so you have about 1300 crit, 1000 to 1100 swiftness, and it performs alright. So a lot of these tests I also had tested without prioritizing Rend. So a lot of these, if you see these lower numbers, these 13.4, 13.9, and even up here, 13.1, 13.9, these are runs where I used my old rotation, the rotation in the last video. And as soon as I start swapping to prioritizing Rend, the damage just goes way higher. I'm doing almost 1 billion more damage in a 2-minute test, which is significant. Now I also try a couple of builds with a little bit higher Swift, using Swift Pet 2020. The rotation feels better. It feels good to play. I would recommend you just run Swift Pet or slightly higher Swift. But even with higher Swift, I think mass increase just isn't worth it. Because at that point, you're not only sacrificing damage from crit, you're still not getting the benefits of playing Swift. Now, I also tested from a recommendation 1500 crit, 2416. And I would say this build is great in an ideal scenario, but if you have bad reset RNG on your roundup sweep, this build feels not so good, because your cooldowns are way too long. Now, I saw someone posted in my last video that they were using Critical Blow, but I was thinking, I used to use Critical Blow for stagger synergy. Maybe it's worth trying out, especially since we no longer care that much about Death Rattle damage. Critical Blow wouldn't be that bad, but Critical Blow does way too little damage. Now recently, I've come to appreciate 1400 crit, 2218 with the crit pet. Now at this point, when I was testing 1400 crit, pretty much every rotation is high focus on Earth Rend. Pretty much there's no run here that isn't prioritizing Earth Rend as the #1 DPS. So with no changes to the old build in terms of tripods or anything, it caps out at about 14.8. That is the highest number I could get, testing multiple times. However, as soon as you start putting wealth runes on your green skills, the numbers start to cap out higher. As soon as I put wealth on judgment, my numbers were averaging way higher. And I even managed to break 16, which was crazy. And then I even tried a recommendation on the Reddit post where they used Shredding Strike over Death Rattle. And Shredding Strike actually felt pretty good. Like, even with me messing up a rotation, with Shredding Strike, I still ended up with higher average than the control run. So now I'm replacing the Blue Quick Recharge on Judgment with Legendary Wealth, and in my personal opinion, it is completely up to you and personal preference, Death Rattle or Shredding Strike. Now, I will say Shredding Strike is way faster of an animation than Death Rattle, and also I would recommend you test for yourself whether or not you want to put wealth on your Death Rattle or not. I found that even with Wealth Rune on Death Rattle and the attack speed tripod over the cooldown tripod, Death Rattle was feeling way too clunky for me personally. So this is a personal preference decision. You can either go normal Death Rattle tripods and normal Rune, or you can try Wealth and just suffer a slower Death Rattle, or you can try Shredding Strike with Purple Wealth. But yeah, pretty much the new Scrapper rotation is start in a normal rotation, and then after every follow-up, you prioritize building meter for Earth Rend, popping Earth Rend as soon as you can, and using whatever DPS skills you can if they're up. If all three of your DPS skills are up during Tenacity Release, you can use them and then Earth Rend. If they're not up, then you just full send Earth Rend with nothing. You should still use your T skill whenever you can, because it is your second highest DPS skill. Now, this is a bad habit of mine, and it's from way back when the game first started. This was back when Scrapper's Awakening was the most useless awakening I've ever used, because it did no damage and it provided no utility. But I rarely, if ever, use my Awakening during fights, other than my Hyper, because I know the Hyper does damage. But because we care about sending Earth Rends a lot more, you should try and use your normal Awakening as much as possible, because it will fill your meter so that you get another Earth Rend. So when you have downtime, say you got unlucky with roundup sweeps, none of your other skills are up, or they're still on like a 5-second cooldown, use your Awakening. Then you can Tenacity Release, use your DPS skills, and then Earth Rend and start your rotation over again. It's a good reset button, and it'll up your damage, for sure. luckily this week I got to run with another taijutsu scrapper in Brel. And seeing how this guy also utilizes his skill set for the new rotation definitely confirms that this is probably the best way to play taijutsu right now. You can look up this scrapper's gear as well. His gear is pretty insane. I still have quite a few things to improve, like actually using my awakening during fights. But if you needed something to work towards, I think this is it. If you had anything else to add, I'd love to hear what you had to say about Taijutsu Scrapper and anything else that could be added on to the long list of adaptations for the new rotation. I hope you enjoyed this follow-up on the Taijutsu playstyle. Thanks for watching.
조심해라. 모든 마력이 아브레슈드에게 흘러가고 있다. 좌절하라. 거짓된 질서 속에서.
악몽이 짙어졌습니다. 더 깊은 몽환 속으로 들어온 것 같군요.
벗어날 수 없는 악몽에 질식해 절망하라. 아브레슈드, 이 더러운 악몽을 부숴준다.